The Zodiac Killer's story begins in Santa Barbara on June 4, 1963. High school seniors Robert Domingos and his fiancée Linda Edwards had decided to go sunbathing at an isolated stretch of the beach as part of their senior ditch day. This was a local tradition in which students close to graduation took part in. It is believed that during this time, the Zodiac Killer approached the young lovers and forced Edwards to bind Domingos with rope while being held at gunpoint. Domingos and Edwards did attempt to escape, but unfortunately this resulted in both being shot multiple times. Domingos was shot a total of 11 times, while Edwards was shot 9 times. The killer then dragged both of the bodies 30 feet to an empty shack. Edwards' body was positioned face up on top of Domingos, and her bathing suit was cut open at the top, exposing her breasts. The killer then attempted to set fire to the shack but failed. When the two did not return home later that evening, Domingos' father decided to go to the beach to find the two, and unfortunately discovered both of their bodies in the shack. When this case was first being investigated, the serial killer was not on police radar. It wasn't until 1969, whenever there was another attack on a couple, that the police linked the two crimes together due to their similarities. The killer at the beach used a Winchester Western Super X ammunition, the same which the Zodiac Killer used in the 1968 murders. In 1972, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department issued a press release attempting to link the beach murder to the murders by the Zodiac Killer. It was ultimately concluded that the beach killings had the Zodiac Killer's fingerprints all over it. From the gun used to the rope and the motiveless killings of these two teens, it was very likely that these killings were the act of the Zodiac Killer. Just like the murder of Domingos and Edwards, this next murder is also a possible killing, but the evidence kind of points towards the Zodiac Killer. This event took place on October 30th, 1966, when Riverside student 18-year-old Cheri Jo Bates did not return home after her visit to the library. The next morning, Bates's Volkswagen Beetle was found outside the library, but Bates was nowhere to be seen. Her body was soon found lying between two houses with several stab wounds and a slashed throat. Theories have suggested the killer sabotaged Bates' car by ripping out the middle distributor coil and then offered to help her. The driver's side door was open and the window rolled down halfway. Finger and palm prints covered both the car door and the window, and the key remained in the ignition. More clues were left behind at the crime scene: a male's Timex watch, a military boot footprint, and hers in dried blood which was on the victim's hand. Only a month after Bates's death, a local newspaper and the police received typewritten letters called The Confession, and I'll put up the letter on the screen now so you can read it. In this letter, we see that the writer shows a sexual motivation to their killings, as well as their wish to humiliate and get revenge on women that have rejected them in the past. Only 6 months after this, Bates's father received a letter reading, "Bates had to die, there will be more." This letter was signed with a symbol which resembled the letter Z. The case of Cheri Bates fell silent for some time until police identified a killer under the alias Bob Barnett. Police believed Bates was previously in a relationship with Bob, and in the weeks leading up to her murder, she became engaged and broke the news to Bob. It is still not known whether a jilted ex-lover or the Zodiac Killer was the cause of Bates's murder. This case has a lot more to which I might cover in a separate video, but for now, Bates's murder remains unsolved.
Sergeant, could you briefly describe what apparently happened last night?
Yes, we had a double homicide that took place out on a county road about sometime after 11 o'clock last night. A double homicide involving victims were a 16-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy.
How did this incident occur, apparently?
Well, they were shot.
What were the circumstances involved?
Possibly they were ordered out of the car by the responsible, and the boy was shot right at the side of the car, and the girl apparently tried to run, and she was shot and found 28 feet further on.
There was one bullet hole that penetrated one of the windows of the car. Was this a stray bullet, or was this one of the bullets that hit the victim and went on through?
This could be a stray bullet or a warning bullet of some sort that we can't connect it with the bodies, but it's the same type of shell.
Do you have any idea what the possible motive might be for this killing?
We have no motive at this time.
Just 5 days before Christmas, two high school students, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, set out on their first date together. Betty Lou's parents were promised that the two would be home by 11 p.m. Shortly after 11, a passing motorist noticed the two parked in Lover's Lane. Only moments later, another motorist passed and noticed what seemed to be two lifeless bodies at the side of the road. Police arrived on scene and the bodies were identified as Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Jensen had 5 bullet wounds in her back, while Faraday had 1 in his head. Unfortunately, Jensen was pronounced dead at the scene, however Faraday was still breathing but near death. Having noticed bullet holes in the car's roof and back window, it was believed that the two were forced out of the car with warning shots. After the warning shots were fired, Faraday exited the vehicle and was shot while doing so. Jensen then attempted to flee the scene but was also shot. While Jensen and Faraday are well-known victims of the Zodiac Killer, there have been other theories surrounding these attacks. A few days prior to this attack, Faraday had learnt of a major drug deal and was openly talking about who was involved. Additionally, no letters or phone calls were received until months after the crime. However, when Zodiac finally took credit for this attack, he was able to detail information not known to the public.
A double murder on Lover's Lane. Shocking, especially for a peaceful town like Vallejo. Frightening because it's such a random act. And frustrating because the hunt for the killer turns up nothing. And then, just 6 months later, it happens again, 2 miles from here, at another Lover's Lane.
It's after midnight, July 5th, 1969. 22-year-old Darlene Farron and 19-year-old Mike Majot believe the man approaching their car is a policeman until he opens fire.
Darlene Farron was a wife and mother. She and a friend took a trip out to Blue Rock Springs Park on the night of July 4th, 1969. Around midnight, another car pulled into the car park, leaving and then returning just minutes later. The driver of this mysterious vehicle got out and shone a bright light, then fired into Darlene's car. Michael was shot in the jaw, leg and shoulder, while Darlene was hit multiple times. Around 12:40 p.m, police received a call from a petrol station payphone claiming responsibility for the crime. In a low voice, the caller said, "I want to report a murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Unfortunately, Darlene passed away on arrival to hospital, however Michael survived. For the remaining part of the summer of '69, newspapers received 4 different letters. The first 3 letters were received on July 31st by different newspaper companies. In the first letter, the writer took responsibility for the shooting of Jensen, Faraday, Darlene, and detailing about the victims, the weapons used, and the number of shots fired, and the brand of ammunition. The letter read, "I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman, and the girl last 4th of July. To prove this, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas. Number 1. Brand name of ammo, Super X. 2. 10 shots fired. 3. Boy was on back feet to car. 4. Girl was lying on right side feet to west. 4th of July. 1. Girl was wearing patterned pants. 2. Boy was also shot in knee. 3. Brand name of ammo was Western." The second letter was one of 3 almost identical letters accompanied by a cipher. In this letter, the writer demanded the letters and ciphers be published by Friday, August 1st. It read, "I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Friday, 1st of August, '69, I will go on a kill rampage. Friday night. I will cruise around all weekend, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again, until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend." Just like the second letter, the third also threatened to attack again if the cipher was not published. It read, "I want you to print this cipher on the front page by Friday afternoon, August 1st, '69. If you do not print this cipher, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night. This will last the whole weekend. I will cruise around killing people who are alone at night until Sunday night, or until I kill a dozen people." The fourth letter was received a few days later. It was a response to the police who at the time were asking for information so that they could confirm the writer of these letters truly committed the crimes as outlined. It read, "Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your asking for more details about the good times I have had in Vallejo, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they'll have me. On the 4th of July, I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. He ended up at the back seat, then the floor in back, thrashing very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene of the killing with squealing tires and racing engine as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quite slowly so as to not draw attention to my car. The man who told the police that my car was brown was about 40 to 45, rather shabbily dressed. I was in this phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cops when he was walking by. When I hung up the phone, the damn thing began to ring, and that drew his attention to me and my car. Last Christmas. In that episode, the police were wondering how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was a well-lit night and I could see silhouettes in the horizon. Bullshit. That area is surrounded by high hills and trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice, in the centre of the beam of the light, if you aim at the wall or ceiling, you'll see a black or dark spot in the centre of the circle of the light about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped to a gun barrel, the bullet will strike to the centre of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them as if it was a water hose. There was no need to use the gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get the front page coverage. Almost 3 months after Darlene's murder, the Zodiac Killer struck again. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing along the shore of Lake Berryessa when a man wearing a hooded costume with a white cross circle stitched over the chest and holding a gun appeared. He told the 2 college students that he needed money and a car to escape to Mexico as he had just escaped from prison. Hartnell offered his wallet and car keys, which weren't taken. Using pre-cut plastic lengths from a clothesline, he bound the 2 students' wrists. He then stabbed a large knife into Hartnell's back 6 times and then stabbed Cecilia 10 times. He then walked to Hartnell's car and drew a cross circle on the door with the dates and locations of previous attacks. Then wrote the current date and the time of the new killing, noting that the killing this time was by knife. After several minutes, park rangers were alerted of the couple screaming after nearby fishermen heard the 2. By the time help arrived, the pair had managed to free themselves from the ties and the rangers called an ambulance. This took almost half an hour, by which point the couple were in critical condition. Half an hour after the attack, police received a phone call from a payphone which directed them to the crime scene, and the caller confessed to the crime stating, "I'm the one who did it." Hartnell survived the gruesome events, however Shepard died 2 days later in hospital. Ted Bundy was first blamed for this attack, however in February 1989, fingerprint comparisons were made clearing Bundy of this crime. Paul Stine worked as a cab driver in San Francisco. He was a 28-year-old husband and student. Stine set out on a normal night picking up a fur-headed passenger and beginning route to his passenger's required destination. They came to an intersection at Washington and Cherry Street when the passenger shot Stine in the head and removed a piece of the victim's clothing. Before police could arrive, the killer walked away. When police arrived on the scene, they mistakenly described the killer as a black man, meaning officers dismissed the white man, resembling the right description. Witnesses were able to provide a description of the killer and a sketch was produced. This murder was not linked to the Zodiac Killer until a newspaper received an envelope from the Zodiac Killer. The letter read, "I am the murderer of the taxi driver over Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a bloodstained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did the people in the North Bay area. The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly instead of holding road races with their motorcycles seeing who can make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." This letter also included the bloodstained piece of Paul Stine's shirt. By this point, it seems as though the Zodiac Killer is enjoying taunting and mocking the police's desperate efforts to find out who the killer really is. On November 8th, 1969, newspapers received yet another letter containing a part of Paul Stine's shirt. "I thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front page? I get awfully lonely when I'm ignored. So lonely I could do my thing." This letter also contained a humorous greeting card that read, "And I can't do a thing with it." The next day, another paper received a letter from the Zodiac Killer. I've included all of the letter in the video, so you can take a pause and read it because it is quite long. The final letter for now was much different to the previous letters received. It was addressed to Melvin Belli, which read, "Dear Melvin, this is the Zodiac speaking. I wish you a happy Christmas. The one thing I ask of you is that this, please. I cannot reach out for help because of this thing in me won't let me. I am finding it extremely difficult to hold it in check. I am afraid I will lose control again and take my 9th and possibly 10th victim. Please help me. I'm drowning. At the moment, the children are safe from the bomb because it is so massive to dig in and the trigger mech requires much work to get it adjusted just right. But if I hold back too long from No 9, I will lose all control of myself and set the bomb up. Please help me. I cannot remain in control for much longer."
Attorney Melvin Belli, accompanied by police and newsmen, waited 45 minutes today to keep a rendezvous with San Francisco's Zodiac Killer of 5 persons. The man who made the appointment never showed up. The meeting was arranged this morning when a caller, identifying himself as Sam, reached Belli on a KGO-TV talk show. He said he was the Zodiac Killer and needed help. Here's how it looked and sounded.
Talk to us. Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam, please.
I have headache.
Right.
How long have you had those headaches, Sam? In a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
Well, was it before December that you had the headaches?
Yes.
Were you in service that you might have had an injury in service? Did you ever fall out of a tree or downstairs? Were you ever unconscious?
I don't know.
You don't remember. Does aspirin do you any good?
No.
Doesn't do any good.
Sam,
That stuff never did me any good either when I had headaches.
Sam, let me ask you a question. Did you attempt to call this program one other time when Mr. Belli was with us? And you
What?
Did you try to call us one other time about two or 3 weeks ago when Mel Belli was with us?
Yes.
And you, and
You
we
couldn't get through? And
couldn't
we were
get through. The
talking?
phones were tied up. Was that it?
Yes.
Sam, let me ask you this. There's some reason why you go to a particular doctor or a particular priest, and some reason why apparently you wanted to talk to me or Lee. Is it that you feel that we have compassion for people who get in trouble? Or is it you feel that we can do something for you? Or is it you feel that we have enough integrity that if we promise you something, that we're going to stick to it?
Well, let's find out why he wanted to talk to. Why did you want to talk to Mr. Belli, Sam?
I don't want to be hurt.
In September 1970, Donna disappeared sometime after 1:50 a.m. after her shift as a nurse. Her car was found abandoned near her apartment, and according to witnesses, an unknown man called Donna's employer and landlord, informing them that she had to leave town due to a family emergency. The man was never identified, and it's no surprise that there was in fact no family emergency. While it was never confirmed who Donna's killer was, her unsolved case has been added to the list of Zodiac's potential victims. The Zodiac Killer was believed to be involved due to an advertisement for a project in Lake Tahoe with phrases "past Lake Tahoe areas" and "sought victim 12. This led many to believe this was a cryptic clue regarding to the disappearance of Donna. The final collection of letters begins with a suspected postcard from the Zodiac Killer. The message was created using text clipped from different types of sources, spelling out, "Dear Editor, you'll hate me, but I've got to tell you." The pace isn't any slower. In fact, it's just one big 13th. The letter also pointed out that the police were closing in on the Zodiac Killer and proceeded to mock police forces once again by asking, what was his price tag? I will leave a link below outlining the full details of the postcard, as there is quite a bit of information which explains the cipher contained within the message. Not long after this letter, reporter Paul Avery of the Chronicle received a letter with his name misspelt. The Halloween card had a grinning skeleton on the front of it, and the inside read, "Peekaboo, you're doomed, from your secret pal." Paul was a well-respected journalist who bonded with cartoonist Robert Graysmith when they both expressed an interest in catching the Zodiac Killer. Paul believed this card, which was delivered to him, was a way for the Zodiac Killer to make an idle threat in order to gain a little publicity. It was months later before another letter would be received from the Zodiac Killer. It read, "Like I have always said, I am crack-proof. If the blue meanies are ever going to catch me, they have best get off their fat asses and do something, because the longer they fiddle and fart around, the more slaves I will collect for my afterlife. I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activity, but they are only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. The reason I'm writing to the Times is this: they don't bury me on the back pages like some of the others." At the bottom of this letter, the writer included 17 plus, suggesting that he had upward of 17 victims. This letter is what led Paul Avery to believe that the Zodiac was involved in the murder of Cheri Jo Bates in 1966. The Zodiac was not heard from for the next 2 years, until the Albany Times Union newspaper received a letter suggesting an impending threat of murder. It gave a date, August 10th at 5 p.m, during a shift change. The letter read, "You were wrong. I am not dead or in the hospital. I am alive and well, and I'm going to start killing again. Below is the name and location of my next victim. But you had better hurry, because I'm going to kill her August 10th at 5 p.m, when the next shift change. Albany is a nice town." At the bottom of this letter was a cipher which decoders deciphered to read, "Albany Medical Centre, this is only the beginning." Handwriting experts could not determine if this new letter was written by the same person who had also wrote the previous Zodiac letters. Now, we haven't yet covered what all of these ciphers actually meant. There were 4 ciphers in total, with one cipher being split into 3 parts. While some ciphers were decrypted quite quickly, some still don't have definitive answers. The first cipher was cracked within a week of receiving it. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The second cipher, which came along with the first, then took 50 years to crack. In December 2020, a team of code breakers finally figured out the message. This was the cipher which was posted alongside Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt. It read, "I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me." Unfortunately, the last 2 ciphers have not yet been solved, and some believe they may never be solved. This is because the ciphers are said to be too short, and therefore it's impossible to determine an encryption key. Despite this, a university graduate attempted to crack some of the ciphers, using the key from previous ciphers. The first in which he decrypted was coordinates. Considering this cipher came alongside the threat to wipe out a school bus, this would make sense. The student then followed the coordinates and found a location which wasn't far from the school in South Lake Tahoe. Using this code, the graduate then attempted to crack one of the most important ciphers of this case. This cipher began with one sentence in English, "My name is." He was able to uncover the word K-A-Y-R, close to the surname K, which was in fact the name of one of the previous suspects, Lawrence K. K had a lot of compelling evidence going against him. K had a past history of violence, having been arrested for charges of fraud and conspiracy. After these charges, K became a salesman, in which he was also arrested for stealing gems. Nearly 7 years after this, K was arrested again on charges of disturbing the peace, adultery, assault and battery. K then changed his name to Kane, but continued to get arrested for being a peeping Tom, shoplifting and using a credit card illegally. Now, prior to these crimes, K had suffered from a head injury from a car accident, and he had been diagnosed with impulse control disorder. But either way, K wasn't really racking up the best criminal history, which is possibly why a lot of people swayed towards the idea that K was capable of killing so many innocent people. However, despite all of these charges, the reasons why so many linked K to the Zodiac Killer was because K was chosen out of the lineup by Kathleen Johns, a woman who had claimed to have been kidnapped by the Zodiac Killer. He also looked quite similar to the man police encountered the night of Stine's murder. Richard was a worker for the Good Times newspaper. A lot of people believed Richard looked like the sketches of the Zodiac Killer. However, he did not have a wide nose or a widow's peak, features which were in the sketch. He allegedly attended one of the victims' funerals, even though he did not know who they were. He had a basement, which not many people had, however the Zodiac mentioned having a basement as well. There was a list of reasons why people wanted to put the blame on Richard. In my opinion, they're quite silly, and it seems as though some people may have had an eye for Richard or simply just wanted to give the Zodiac Killer an identity. Arthur Lee Allen was an alleged paedophile who came into police radar in 1969 after being seen near the scene of one attack. He once again gained the attention of police in 1971 after telling a friend he had a desire to kill people and used the name Zodiac. As a child, Allen was interested in torturing bugs and killing animals. He would also burn insects, and if he found a frog, he would dissect it. There has been a strong correlation between children who harm animals and their likelihood to commit violent acts in the future. This is essentially an early indicator of the possibility of abuse of children or romantic partner, future assault, and even murder. The Francisco Chronicle was contacted by two relatives of Gary 6 years ago, who claimed Gary had attempted to kill one with a hammer and the other simply accusing Gary of being the Zodiac Killer. The group of codebreakers who were breaking the ciphers are certain Post is the Zodiac Killer. Using forensics evidence, the team were able to prove that Gary did in fact kill Cheri Jo Bates. Gary bore a resemblance to the police sketch made of the killer, having similar scars on his forehead. However, police and FBI have dismissed these findings out of respect to the victims and their families, and have said this case is still open and remains unsolved. This is one of the most interesting cases in the true crime world, in my opinion. This was the case that really got me into true crime due to so many mysteries surrounding it. We can only hope that the advancements in DNA technology can someday help the families of the victims involved gain some sort of closure.
Trying to find some peace of mind. Tonight I feel so low again, alone again. To me you are the brightest star in the sky. Oh, why do you cry? Why do you cry? Do not fear, we've been here before, my dear. It's clear that we've made it this far. Now look where we are. For you, keeping